everyone.
Hi, girls.
How are you?
Great.
It's always like we all, overlap each other to ask how are you, and I
Indeed.
was thinking it's gonna happen, but it's good. Everyone is making sure. I like that. I think the background music changed, right?
Yeah, a little bit. It's more elevator kind of.
I didn't really say it, but yeah.
It's gonna be spring, in my place at least, but I heard it's a little bit colder in up north, right? How about you,
Indeed.
Josefine Alba? Is it colder?
Yeah. It's
Oh, okay.
very, how do you say that? It's like a trick on the ice because you see the flowers blooming and there's like lots of blue sky, and then you go outside and you're like, damn it, I forgot my gloves. I'm freezing on my bike. So yeah, it's still cold, but it's really nice. It's turning around, so that's really good.
Nice. What about your place, Alba?
Well, let's say that the weather here is really crazy. Like you go out, then it's raining, then it's windy, then it's sunny. So you don't know what to wear, and it's freezing, but then it's 30 degrees, and that is more or less okay, but then it changes again. It's crazy.
Oh, so busy weather, right?
Yeah, no. The Netherlands in spring is just, really crazy. Oh, we have an animal.
Did I see a so cute, like, pow?
Yeah, I'm so scared that he's gonna like sit on the mute button or anything else that I don't like. And now he was just like trying to scratch the screen, so I'm like,
oh no,
we get it, you're a wild tiger, but please behave yourself on the street.
So cute.
So cute. He always comes around, right, when it's live streaming.
Yeah, he enjoys the additional attention because apparently I am not enough.
So cute. All right. I think we can slowly get started. Maybe like I want to start from, first of all, like what is GirlCode? Because we have the GirlCode like in our official live streaming name. This is the GirlCode is in a British like organization to empower women and non-binary people to join in tech. So we have like a nice system to nominate, people who are very active and, like giving nice influence to the others to become ambassadors, and we all are. So that's why we thought about it's nice to, like organize something online meetup kind of, but more or less, like the casual coffee chat in public. So that's why you see the GirlCode in the our live streaming name. And we all work at Storyblok. That's why you see that. And we borrowed the platform to stream so that we all, like can, handle the streaming like easier. So that's about us. And today we have two guests, who are very good friend of ours. And both of them are like quite interesting, like people doing cool stuff. But instead of, like teasing too much, I think I'm going to bring them in here and let them introduce about themselves. So I wish we could have the drum rolls.
Nice.
Hey, Lisi. Hey, Lorena.
The awkward moment has come.
No.
Hope you had enough time to calm down or like, get rid of like the nervous feeling. But this is very casual coffee chat, so don't be. All right. Thank you so much for joining, both of you two. And I think you know about yourself better than anyone else. So I will let you two to introduce about yourself. Who want to go first?
Lorena, you want to go first?
I was saying you, but it's okay. I can start. So I am a senior front-end developer working at Storyblok. Very hard to guess. And I'm working directly on the editor, so I'm the one who eventually release features or sometimes bugs. But anyway, I hope more features than bugs. And that's it.
All right.
Cool.
I'm Lisi. The past 2 years, I've been the principal Frontend Architect at Storyblok, and I worked on the whole system there, doing many things over the time period I've worked at Storyblok.
Yeah, they wrapped up like in a very short version of the intro, but what they both do are really, cool. And yeah, I admire like their works. And yeah, it's so nice to have, like people working in the same company, or used to Lizzie's case, because she's gonna probably like find a new journey. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, that's why like I wanted to have them in this streaming. And today we want to talk about like the seniorities and the different levels in many different dev roles. Because even if you're a developer, doesn't mean that you're aware of all the dev roles out there, right? And I also sometimes wonder, like about what makes, like the senior as senior roles, or like different, like questions, which we also want to include. And that's why Lorena also joined, because she also has questions to ask about as a guest. And in fact, she's one of the senior roles at Storyblok. So yeah, that's why like I thought about why not to bring her in too. So yeah, here we are.
Yeah, and that's weird because as a senior I should know what I am, but sometimes I still wonder.
No, but it's very good question, because I mean, yeah, I think we can already start off the question you had, Rory. So maybe like, oh yes, Josephine.
No, I had a question first because, I mean, Lorena,
Okay.
you said it, right? You should know what you are. So how did you get there? You started probably as a junior somewhere, and then you were an intermediate. And was there anything in between? And what did you do to get there?
Yeah, but you're already setting some boundaries that I really don't know, because yes, how can I say? You start and maybe you work for like 20 years, and you can say, okay, that person is a senior, but you don't know what she really did. Maybe she just worked with the same language for 20 years and doesn't know anything about all the rest. So could you really say that he's a senior just because it's 20 years in the field? So yeah. So that's the point. And but yes, usually I like to call myself just front-end developer, because it's more, it's what I do, whatever the level is. But yes, right now I'm currently a senior. I was also a senior in my previous company, so it's a thing. So it's why sometimes I wonder this. But my question were like, who's the one who decide what you are? If you are good enough to be called senior, if it's something that you call yourself, or it's something that other people call you, like your company or whatever. And yes, because I also think that the seniority depends on where you are working. So maybe you are a senior in a company, you change company, and in that company you are not a senior anymore. Maybe you are medium or a junior, because you still have a lot of things to learn that in the previous company probably they were already enough. And so yeah.
I think it's a really good point. So engineering letters are very specific to companies. There is a lot of different companies have different letters. It's common to have like different levels, but each company kind of defines on their own levels and their own like priorities. So it's very difficult to compare. I would say what Lorena also said, to say, is this senior at this company the same kind of senior? Why it's also very interesting in hiring when you apply for new roles, because often you would apply to go to a better role or to go to the same level, but then of course a different company has a different way of evaluating what a senior is. So it's a very important point, I would say, for engineering letters, that's very specific to the places where you work.
Yeah, I think if, let's say, the company you're interested in to work with is publicly, like showing what levels are expected, like in which kind of skills, then that's easier. But I see that that's not always the case. I have seen a very, very few numbers of companies who I looked into before had, let's say, like this kind of, not a statement, but let's say like some kind of guideline where people could look at it, evaluate by themselves before they apply. And if people could see that, like, okay, I'm at the middle level, so maybe to apply this position is a bit too early, then it also saves the company's workload to, like process people, to hire in their hiring processes. But that's something you might figure it out after you join the companies, I thought, because the experience I had so far is like I figured that out later I joined, or these, let's say, kind of the clear guidelines, or like what makes you to be a senior or junior or middle level is created way after I joined. So maybe that's something you probably cannot expect every time that you will get it. Sometimes you need to ask probably and communicate with your managers or boss basically. yeah
And how to say, I mean, maybe in small company you don't need to have this specific specification about the job role. You do what you do, but probably in the bigger company you need that also because of the growth inside a company. But again, you are in a company. They defined a senior role for you, and so you in the company really know that you are a senior because you have a list of the things that you need to know. But you're senior for that company. I mean, you're senior in that context. If you change, you still don't. I mean, I still don't know because yes, I can still be, but probably there will be, because there is always new things to learn. So,
Josi?
Yeah, where I was working before in a really big company, they had this kind of method of evaluating seniority with a T-shape model for skills. So they were talking about breadth of skill and depth of skill. And Alba, your face is like, what is she talking about? Hear me out. Oh my God. So they were talking about like how broad is your skill, how many different things do you know, and then how well do you know them. And for a junior, they would expect just to know like a little bit and not so deep. And then the more advanced you go, either you have to be super, super broad and know a little bit of everything to kind of be a generalist and be able to move around, or you have to go into very, very deep into some knowledge so that you can be considered. That was their model. I'm not saying it's the best way to do it, but I was just like, that's one metric I know to measure seniority. Does it make sense now?
Yeah, I didn't know it. That was my face. Because at the beginning I didn't hear broad, I heard bread, and I was thinking, what has to be with bread? Now I get it. No, actually, I think that's a good point, and I never thought about it because I work in agencies and consultancies before Storyblok, so I didn't work in a product company. And in the consultancy world, they have a really good progress in career progression. So usually you have your own goals, and if you meet them, you become a senior at some point. But it's not something that they have defined for each role. They have it for each individual. So if I have a goal and I just achieve it or exceed expectation, then I reach that level, some kind of thing. But the T is a really good point because I felt that when I start becoming better at developing, I felt exactly to be homogeneous in knowing a bit of everything and knowing a lot about something. So I was a Vue developer, really deep level of knowledge in Vue, but then I started learning TypeScript, backend with Node, a little bit of another services or third parties, and then it became the T. and I felt more senior, and I didn't know there was a thing to explain it, So yeah, that's a good point. I really like it.
Yeah, I shared a link with a visual in the chat. I didn't read the article now. I was just looking for a visual, so please don't judge me if they're saying anything really bad. I just wanted a visual, but this is what you could probably Google and follow up with. It's called T-shaped skills, and apparently it's a thing. I just knew it from that company, and I thought they invented it. So there's more to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
That's interesting.
there are like every company kind of makes their own or like adapts some kind of ladder system. There are more general ways like measuring seniority or measuring also beyond seniority. I will share 2 links here. And they focus also on a lot of non-technical things. So the technical side, of course, the technical skills are always one of the core things. But then the higher you go, if you go to senior roles, if you go to staff roles, if you go to architect roles, a lot of other skills also become more important. So that can be leadership skills, that can be influencing skills, that can be delivery, like how good are you helping the company to reach its goals, to deliver new things. How much do you know about the company? How much business knowledge? How much industry knowledge do you have? For example, if you work at Spotify, you probably need a lot of knowledge of the music industry. And then also working with teams and having emotional intelligence, communicating with people and abstracting things. And a lot of these ladders, they aim to kind of quantify that in their systems. These different kind of axes of non-technical skills that you need at these high levels.
Tavi is interested in listening our streaming too, right?
But actually, about the ladders, I'm interested on knowing, in your case, as you were an architect and you were being an architect for 3 years, can you consider a senior architect at this point in time?
Good question.
I mean, architect roles are like one of the roles you can have on the individual contributor kind of scale. So they're like most often beyond staff roles and architect roles. And normally you don't have that many architects, so you have 50 developers or 2 architects with 100 developers. So it's a very like role that's not that common, I would say. And it also depends very much on the company. So you can also have a lot of different kind of architects. You can have architects that are very technology focused, very system focused. So that was kind of my role. But you can also have architects that are more focused on like the business side or the vendor side, like the solution architects. So there's a lot of variation again between companies, what the architect really does, and it's very difficult to compare architects. It's easier to compare senior developers, but even those are difficult to compare across companies.
Sorry, there are so many like comments coming up. I mean, like good quality comments coming up. I'm not good at multitasking things, but I mean, like, yeah. Sorry. What you answered about like the architect, what it defines about like their role and the content of the job would be different depending on the companies and the teams, would help me to understand like what you were actually like working. I mean, like although we were in the same company, it's difficult to see, you know, like what exactly people are, you know, like working day-to-day basis in different, you know, teams. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I also worked with the other architects people who were like external, let's say like people, but still, you know, like worked with me. We had some nice collaborations, and in those people's cases, like I felt what they were working on was very different than what you were working on, Lisi. So yeah, that's why like I also wanted to ask you, like what are, let's say, like the job or like the day-to-day tasks as the architect? But I think you already answered that. And I found also you wrote an article in your blog, right? Like becoming an architect from front end. So if you're interested in reading about it, I think I just opened up. Yeah, I was actually reading right before joining this live streaming, so I'm gonna paste that.
And by the way, it's very interesting to read.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, as I was saying in the beginning, like, just because you're a dev doesn't mean that you know all the roles and the possibilities. And yeah, same for like what makes seniors as really senior also, you know, relates to that. It would be different depending on the companies you work, depending on the teams you work, depending on, let's say, like the skill sets you have. Is it gonna be soft skill, or is it considered, you know, like with 50-50, or is it gonna be like more 100% technical? And I guess we have a question related to that, right?
Indeed.
Which I want to find out. Yeah.
Nuova Code. Oh my God, I completely took that apart. But they were asking, is it more about hard skills or soft skills?
Yeah, I was about to ask that too, because we are talking about technical things right now, but of course, probably being senior, it's also other stuff. But maybe we need to understand how much technical and how much soft skill we need to put on the balance.
And what soft skills and where can we get them, please?
Yeah, but Lisi is very good at that.
I think, I mean, I will share a really good blog post about like generated engineering letters topic. And it says, it really depends if you want to focus on like also the management side, on the engineering manager, on the team lead, on the tech lead, or more on the individual contributor. So if you really go towards the staff engineering and towards the architecture roles, you need more hard skills. You need a lot of technology skills. You need to know backends. You need to know infrastructures. You need to make decisions. But of course, as I mentioned, these roles are not as common. These are very hard to achieve and to get to, depending on the company. And engineering manager roles are way more common because you will have an engineering manager maybe per every team. And then you need also a lot more engineering managers that can handle smaller parts of the business. And in engineering manager roles, I think you need a lot more soft skills, and you need to also focus more on developing these decision-making skills, on developing kind of influencing skills. So how to get someone to do something? How can I best help my team to achieve their goals? And then you do that with multiple teams, you do that in the whole company, and then at some point you go beyond the company into a whole community as like, I don't know, maybe like a very senior Microsoft person who like represents the whole company to the outside. So it really depends what also the person is aiming for. Are you aiming to be just like a very strong individual architecture person, or do you also want to have this kind of influencing people skills that a company also always needs?
Yeah.
This actually led me to come up with a question. Sorry, I know we have questions like from the audience, but let me quickly ask about it. Like, did you have like any other chance to talk about that you were interested in to, you know, like be part of the architect? Or was it more of like eventually like what you were doing naturally, like, you know, like helped you to, you know, like move on to that position?
Yeah, I think that's with most promotions. So in most companies, you would say you need to be doing actually the job already for 3 to 6 months until you get the promotion. So I was doing already a lot beyond my role for quite some time, and then they decided to give me this role. So it's rarely that they will give you the role before you've actually done that. And also when you go to a new company, you will rarely get hired for a role you have not done yet. So a good way to get into higher roles is to see how you can actually start doing that role. And that's also how I got promoted to the architect, because I was doing a lot more things that no one else was doing.
So you were already performing like as an architect, doing more than, let's say, like kind of
more than many of the other developers. And then, I mean, that's the reason why I got to be an architect is because it was a very fast-growing startup. So it's a lot easier to go to higher roles if you're in like a small company that's growing fast. It's very difficult to become an architect in like a large company that has these all really well-defined roles already. And there you then really need to have the track record of I worked here doing that, and you need to actually show that you're able to do that. And then, as I said, often companies, they would start hiring always on the senior level. And then once you start there, they promote you. They will not, like, it's very difficult as a company if you hire, oh, they're actually like middle senior, super senior, like it's very hard to quantify on those levels when you hire. So many companies will start hiring on a senior engineering level if they look for like senior kind of people.
So it's a mix of, or it's a lot of doing the job already and a little bit of, is it needed in my company? Is there even like room to fill?
Yeah.
And can I ask you why you decided to work more than your role? It was because you wanted to become an architect at some point, or it was just because you were loving the product that you were building and you wanted to help
I think,
somehow?
yeah, it was because it was needed. Like in a startup environment, there's always more work than there's people. And a lot of the things that I was doing were needed, but there was no one there yet to like have that kind of role. So I was doing a lot of the necessary things without having the actual title. But in startup, it is like this. It's very stressful. You have to work a lot and you have to do a lot of things you might even not know yet how to do. I know it was also very similar for other people who like became team managers or tech leads who haven't done that before. So it's always like a mix of doing a lot of very, very challenging things and working a lot, and then also there being the room for having that person being responsible for it.
I have some mixed feelings about that. Like, I think it's so corporate and capitalistic to have people do a job before, like, you're not getting, I mean, it worked out really well for you, and I'm sure you enjoyed it and you learned a lot, and I don't want to judge you or anybody in particular, but it always makes me a bit like, I feel like you should be paid for the work that you do, and you shouldn't have to like prove for 6 months that you're capable of doing it before you get a role. But that's maybe my unpopular opinion. I just feel like it should be more like, here's your responsibility, here's your money, now you can do the job. Like, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think that happens once you're on like the senior level. It gets easier because then there's also like, you don't have to go beyond the senior level, but you're already like kind of, you reach this like this really difficult part of getting there. You've proven yourself, especially if you're like in your second or third like kind of senior position. But while you're still growing, there's a lot of like pressure of like showing that you're actually at that level and that you actually have those skills that the company is asking for. So yeah, again, that also depends on the company.
Yeah, makes sense.
Then I think
the hard
also,
reality.
Yeah, I think also companies do want people to proceed and to go to higher levels. So that's why they make these architectures and these ladders to kind of still keep people growing and pushing and not get stuck on a single level.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think, yeah, it's very difficult, let's say, like thing to set the border, like what is something considered as like okay kind of range and what is considered like something you should get paid. And yeah, this is quite difficult one, but what I thought about is like because I'm also kind of thinking or working on from my career path right now, and what it helped me is like probably like start to talk to, let's say, your managers or someone like in your team who has, let's say, the experience that you're looking for or who can help you with. And with them, by talking to them, then they get to know about like what you actually want to grow more, like in the team, in the company. And if they know the way to help you out, then probably like before you start to commit yourself too much, they probably can offer you something like, okay, then we are going to talk to, let's say, the other team that you want to, like start to work with, to share some, workloads with you, or give some tasks that you might be interested in. And in this way, maybe just came up with the idea, because that's something I'm also working on. In this way, maybe like, you could prevent yourself to too much, like try to prove hard, I thought about. But it works differently, like in everyone's cases. But I just thought about like, yeah, maybe why not to share it.
It's also something you can ask in the hiring process. So companies, of course, they have some kind of plans, they have some kind of ideas of like which teams they're having, which positions they have, which positions they might have in the future. And even like job architectures, like people or like companies in the hiring process, they are able to share that and actually talk about that. And they will also often ask you like what your goal is in your career. And they actually want to know that if you're planning to stay on a senior level, or you're planning to go to a manager level, or like whatever like your personal goal is, because they also want to put you in the right position where you can achieve the most or have the most impact for them.
Yeah, and I think it also would meet the benefits for both of, the company that you work or you will work, or yourself, because you don't want, the companies do not want to waste their time and money for resourcing someone, let's say, like who is not expert or fit to that role. So to meet both of, like both of their goals and what they want to do, what they want to achieve, it's very important to talk like from the early stage. And yeah, maybe like have some open culture, or try to pick the company which has like the open culture to talk about it, because I actually had to train myself a lot that this is comfortable thing to talk about, and this is something important to talk about, instead of just keeping for myself. Because I had a few moments, or many times, that because I kept it for myself, and probably it took longer to do the things which I wanted to do. So yeah, it came from the cultural background because like something, I have worked before, it was not easy to talk about it. But yeah, depending on where you work, it is more open, and that's probably the place we should go for it, because that feels more comfortable for everyone, and it works better for both of them. I think we have one more question in the chat. Sorry, I'm not good at multitasking, doing things, so just gonna read it out. Like, question: how do you find high impact projects to deliver value and move up in seniority while working remotely? Okay, so this also includes about like the remote environment.
I think I can get what's the point, because, for example, when I was working in real life in a company, basically you have more control over what you know and what the others know. You have meetings to sync on the things that are happening. And right now, as I feel in Storyblok, as we join a meeting, not all the time I'm actually putting attention. If I'm honest, it's different from in-person meetings. So for me, what it actually meant to work remotely is to be proactive and to actually seek these kind of opportunities. And what I think it can lead you to take a high-level role in a company is to actually look for that specific value proposition task that you can work on and help the product deliver what they want to and reach the goals that they need to reach that year. So in my case, for example, when I was working as a dev role, like a month ago, I was trying to seek the content and everything that we needed to create to actually help sell the product for enterprise client or more top clients. Because of course we are working on documenting everything, but probably what we need to deliver value in is things that the enterprise customers will use, and more specific content for them, tailored for that people that actually will make grow our product. So I think in general, if you want to have a high level, you need to be involved on the things that will make the product or the company you are working with better and in the market, of course, not only just in the developer role. So basically, if you code something, that something will impact the goals in revenue and things that will actually make your company be profitable. So I think, yeah, for me, before Storyblok, of course, I wasn't working in product companies. So it was difficult to know what I need to do in order to be senior, more than comparing myself with others. So if I was working in an agency and I saw another front-end developer doing X thing, if I was doing more things, I consider myself more senior than him. But at which point I become senior, just comparing myself, that's not actually a level. It's just, if you check all the things that we are doing, I was doing more probably. That's why I got the senior role. But it wasn't actually a senior. It was just because I was doing more things. And I don't think that actually is a title in its own. It's just, if you are doing more work, you get paid more. That's it. That was the kind of vibe in agencies. But in the product, I can feel that if I actually deliver value, I can get that position and I actually can be rewarded for it. And that's why in some cases I exceed expectations in the performance and things like that, because I was trying to deliver value, things that maybe not everyone is involved because maybe they don't know how to. That could be also the reason.
And I feel like that's part of the attitude that you, like we were talking earlier about hard skills versus soft skills. And we were talking a lot about, I don't know, managing people, etc. But part of the soft skills from my point of view, please correct me if I'm wrong, would also be like the attitude, right? You want to be, you're super proactive. You're actually looking for things that you think can be fixed. And that's also one differentiator. Like, if I'm completely at the bottom of the food chain and 90% of my time is spent learning, I'm not going to have the mental headspace to even think about how can I make this better, right? But if I evolve to understanding how processes work, how the product works, how whatever it is that I'm working on works, then I can have ideally additional headspace, and maybe I feel the responsibility to do it better. And that's also what I would consider somebody senior to do. Right?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think that connects a lot to like delivering business value and having business impact. And I think also in the architecture role, it's a lot of like being this cheerleader of like showing people, well, this is the way of how we can do it together. You're like positive, but you're still like saying we're moving forward and we're doing it. And it's not easy because beyond the senior level, you don't have people to tell you anymore what to do. So you need to be the person who goes and is like, okay, I think now we should be maybe doing that or focusing on that, but there's no one like really there anymore to exactly tell you how to do things. And that's what senior, or to be a staff, or to be an architect, or like a manager is like, working with all these unknowns and making decisions and driving in some kind of direction together with the company. So the company has goals and you want to go with your goals also in the same direction. But you need to figure out how you can help do that. So, and there's no one who will tell you do that. Just like initiative and what to do and how to do it.
Yeah, I thought that would be actually the pressure to get something, you know, like when you reach to the senior manager, architect, something that you need to actually like lead your team members in your project. It involves some of, let's say, like decisions making, and it also involves to give the feedback to the others. It also involves, let's say, like educating your team members too. And yeah, I actually like thought about this pressure or guessed about this pressure And that's why, like in the beginning, I didn't actually, like even say that when I got the senior, I even didn't say that internally and also externally, because I was kind of like in that pressure and I still wasn't sure like how I can figure that out. And it is very ambiguous in my case because it was like the senior dev role. So the dev role itself is something that, let's say, each companies are defining very differently. Some of them do, let's say, like typical dev role stuff. Some companies, they're okay with if they don't do typical dev role stuff, such as like appearing in conferences, giving talks, communicating with the others, making content on YouTube a lot, basically like what you see often in online. But I got the question myself, like, what defines me as a senior dev role? I mean, like, luckily, I kind of fit into, let's say, the typical dev role tasks that people would guess what I'm doing. But isn't it something same like the other dev role, let's say, members are doing it? What is the expectations of the senior? So I was like keep thinking about like these questions like over my head for a very long time, and I still don't have the clear answer to that. But after I have been working in a team, like a secret hidden senior position, I figured that out. It's quite different from, let's say, them being the manager role, or let's say any higher, let's say, like roles. The expectations, I figured that out. It's something that I give the impact to the team members to drive themselves, to get motivated, and also to improve themselves too, and brings back the positive results as a team. So not as an individual, let's say, result or the success. That's what I thought about it too. But yeah, I'm still figuring out. And I also came up with the one more question, which is actually originally from Rory. You wrote me about like, can senior be, like the, or can seniors still make the mistakes? Or do they should be like free from the errors or mistakings errors? So yeah.
Yeah, because
Lori, what do you think?
What I think.
I also want to hear from you too.
I think that being in the position of senior makes me in the, I should not make mistake, because at that point I will feel very, oh my God, what am I doing? How can I explain this thing? I mean, okay, but then if my mind just quiets a bit, calms a bit, I know that it's not possible not to make mistakes. But and probably the answer is also how we handle, how a senior handle the mistakes that he made. So that's the question I give myself, but I also get this feedback in these years. But still, making mistakes in this position is still something that, especially when you are really dealing with other senior, you don't want to do mistakes, you just don't want. And so, but yes, I think that this is the point. I mean, how you also handle the problems, and both from technical and the other thing, the soft skill. I mean, the way you your anxiety or something, Yeah.
I think you're saying something super valuable, because you, as a senior, you likely have people below you who learn below, right, in air quotes, but who learn from you, and you're in a way a role model. And if people see it's okay that you make a mistake, you own it, and maybe you apologize or you fix it or you figure out how to do better next time. That's it's gonna be so reassuring for people in like lower positions, because if you have a culture of the senior apparently doesn't making any mistakes, I would be so terrified and I would never grow. So I think it's actually like important for seniors to sometimes make mistakes and then handle them correctly, because it's gonna like shape the whole culture around it.
Actually, can I make an analogy? Because the other day I was in a bar and a bartender threw a glass. And it was the first time I saw a senior bartender, because he went, grabbed like not a paper, but something that was like a towel.
Yeah.
And they put it like this and go to the floor and do it like this instead of doing it with, and I realized, oh my God, that's so smart. And probably that guy has more experience in broken glasses. So he knows how to actually handle glass quickly without having everything in a mess. So I realized that probably that could be also the same way a senior will handle a bug. Instead of freaking out and just panicking, probably he will know where to start looking at, where to focus on to find the solution at some point. But yeah, it was a really mind-blowing thing for me.
That's really smart. Yeah.
I hope nobody was hit with a glass first before it crashed, though.
Yeah, probably also the way you solve problem. I mean, there are many ways, and this probably is one of the smartest that you can put in practice. So that's cool.
But I mean, also that's part of the seniorities, like some emotional intelligence, some communication skills. Again, not just the hard skills of knowing something, but actually talking to people, don't like being arrogant and a jerk, and being able to handle difficult situations. So that's it. Like a technical mistake is not the full picture. Also, the other parts of how you handle the mistake, how you talk to people, how you act, is part of being a senior.
Wow, this is the hardest part then, dealing with people, you know. This is no more about your profession. It's about you and how you are able to, you know, communicate. It's also something that,
Yeah.
It's a lot of it.
But I would say anyone, even like a CTO, makes mistakes and then has to handle them in some way. It's very like technical mistakes happen all the time, especially if you're in the industry for longer. But you learn to deal with it and change how you approach something and learn from it.
Yeah, I think you also would get to ask like quite often, let's say like in the job interviews, like because that's what I got mostly asked about, like what you're good at it and what you made the mistakes before and how you handle it. But I guess most of all the interviewers, they're not going to ask you precisely like how would you handle those mistakes. So that's what you need to be kind of aware of it, or try to come up with what you're going to do, I would say. Yeah.
I have one more resource to share.
Yeah.
It's about interviewing, what you just said. Mm-hmm. And a big part of interviewing is exactly for this behavioral kind of way you handle yourself, especially in senior situations. It's really about how do you work in a team? How do you handle difficult situation? How do you handle conflict? And companies will actively look for that in the hiring to figure out if you have this kind of soft skills that you need to work in with multiple people.
Actually, I didn't know about this source, and it looks interesting. Definitely, I'm going to take a look at it after this training.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I have already so many tabs open as well. It's just such a mess. I think Daniel was asking before, he was asking about the in-tray exercise, but also about assessment, like tests that are taken for management and what we think of them. So I would assume this is like a higher level, because you usually have like coding interviews or like exercises to take home, but this would be even like a higher level of assessing skills then?
Yeah, I mean, if you really look for management, it's not even like only on the technical side, but for management, you can also interview in a very different kind of psychological way. You can put them in difficult situations where you say you have a direct interview situation where there is like a difficult employee, and then you have this person interact with this difficult employee. But yeah, the more common way is just behavioral questions of like, okay, you have someone who like is really mean on your code review, what do you do? Or like something like this. So there's some very common questions you can practice for that you would kind of also know if you worked in this situation or in this industry for a while, how to kind of answer and handle yourself. So that's really these soft skills that you need at a certain level that are also asked for in these behavioral interviews.
But it's so interesting because if a company is really small and then grows really quickly, people just become managers. Like they just become, because you need, at some point you will need a manager, right? And so you don't actually, usually you would probably not even go through that process. It would just grow organically and really fast. And it's really interesting because I've never heard of that. And I mean, it's good that they're testing how they would handle difficult employees, but it's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's more common for big companies. So a lot of the interview processes that you can practice for are like Facebook or Google or Airbnb. And also these engineering letters, they're very defined by these very big tech companies that kind of already, because they are growing so fast and they have so much turnover of employees, they all have their systems of how they figure out if it's the right person to hire or not. It's not common to have these kinds of things in smaller companies or in startups. They would do it differently. They make maybe smaller variations of that. But yeah, on large companies, that is part, I think, of the interviewing process.
It's really interesting. I think I was listening to a podcast the other day about Amazon and the working culture there. And maybe I mix it up, so don't pin me to it. But I think they were saying they have like a little bit more of an aggressive leadership style, to, like, for lack of a better word. And in their interviews, they actually look for that. So they will kind of test you on whether you react in line with the company culture. And that's not necessarily what the intuitive, like empathetic, normal human reaction would be, but it's more like a hard line from a certain level. They really want you to go at it. And I thought that was super interesting and sounded very American, if I don't know, but like it's very different from what I would hope management would be like.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I think the cultural, let's say, work culture and depending on the original culture also would play a quite big role, because I got to learn a lot in minimum like 3 different countries, and all of them work differently. So none of them actually like had majority of the parts are common, and quite a lot of the parts are different. So yeah, I think what you felt like it's maybe something like American like ish might be true. Yeah, I just thought I've never worked in the States, by the way, so I could be wrong.
Yeah. And another thing I was thinking when because I was trying to write a post about this thing, and this is also to gather some other stuff, but I had kind of a conclusion that I was always thinking that you find a solution, it's cool, and you're gonna use that forever. But then now I think that for maybe being a senior is also means that you really change your mind. I mean, maybe you are building something. You say that for this flow it's perfect, it works. We will never change that, but there come a day that yeah, this is not that much good anymore now. So we have to change it. I mean, so probably it's not sticking to an idea and keeping that forever, but you talk to people, you see the project grow, and you change also your mind about how you will handle that.
Yeah. I think we don't have any more questions, right? I hope. I think I got distracted a bit for catching up like all the questions. Yeah. But I'm so happy to see, like we have so much active, like chats going on. So it means people are interested in, and so happy that we also got to learn many things and many, like informations, or actually the answers that we were seeking for. So yeah, I think with that we can kind of start to slowly wrap up things. But yes, Josefine.
No, I just wanted to point one thing out that I thought, like earlier somebody mentioned to discuss also with the company whether you actually want to stay senior or move up higher or something. And when we talk about different levels and careers, it's a lot of people assume that everybody wants to go up, but maybe not everybody wants to go up. Maybe you don't want to manage people. Maybe you're super happy and comfortable where you are, and you have your focus on other things, and you don't even want to like go level up or whatever. And that's perfectly fine, right? And I think that's really important to point out when talking about all of these things, that it's a great option, but it's not the necessity. So I just wanted to bring that home.
Yeah, that's really good point, actually, because when everyone started to talk about like, yeah, I got promotion, I'm thinking to apply for like the higher position, I'm interested in to manage, like the team members, I'm a manager, then maybe you start to think like, without being aware of what you want to do, maybe you start to think that, oh, okay, I should look up also. And that's what exactly happened to me. So I was thinking that, okay, I've been in a company for several years, then maybe I should start to look for like higher positions, manager role maybe. But when I thought about it, or when I was asked about it, I thought about like, do I want to manage people? Maybe that's not the things I want to do. Maybe I would be happy with staying in the front line, like focusing on my tasks. Actually, I get to have more time to code. So yeah, it's a really good point. You said, Josefine.
Yeah, it's quite common, I think, for senior positions. So to go beyond the senior, like it gets very difficult. So it's really fine to stay on that level and be happy with that. I think that's very, very, very normal in the industry also.
Yeah, there's
one. The last minute question.
Go ahead, Arisa.
Oh, no, go ahead, Josefine.
No, I was just asking, maybe we can answer the last question that Daniel posed in the chat. It's how do you find out what you want? Which is the question I ask myself every day and about everything. So that's perfect. For life and for work, does anybody have a good answer?
Well, actually, finding what you don't want is actually more mind-changing, because in my case, I was trying to always say what I want now, what I want to do now. I like creating content, I like recording videos, but I like to code more. And when I tried DevRel, it was just to combine all of them and see what I like and what I don't like. And I realized that I don't like recording the videos I don't like doing talks. And I realized what I like the most is coding, because I try all of them. If you don't try, you will never know what is for you and what is not. And of course, in your mind can be really cool, but when you try it, it's not for you. And that's the only way we can deal with that. And for example, in a company, I was working as a senior developer. They made me a leader because I was the only one, and then more people joined the company and I was the senior one. So they put me on top of people and I need to manage them. And I realized that wasn't for me. I didn't know how to handle that. I was frustrated because I didn't know how to actually mentor people or help them to grow. And I was really getting in a frustrated way that I never learned, because I was always frustrated, and I burned out and I left the company because of that. So of course, this wasn't the way to discovering that you are not prepared to be a leader. But yeah, there is times in life that of course you will be more prepared for one thing than another. But in general, what you don't like will be easier to find than what you like. So try everything, try discovering your limits, and try to learn if you want to explore that limit or not. Because sometimes you will want to put the effort on that limit and get better on that. But sometimes, yeah, it doesn't match with you or what you want in life. And it's better if you try, of course.
I had the same experience. I had the same experience with like working in agencies and teaching at the university. I had to try it to know if it's for me or if it's not for me, and I had to try it for some time. And then you can move forward and closer and closer work towards the thing you actually like. And I think another thing is also to look for people that inspire you, or who do things you think are really great. To like, if something really interests you and you see someone and you're like, wow, this is so cool what they're doing, it's probably something you should be like trying out and seeing if you can also do it in some way or another, because that's probably something that you are going to like.
Yeah, and I think what you want to do, or to find out what you actually want to do, might change by the time as well. That's what had happened to me, or happening to me. So I was like going to whatever the conferences I applied for. Basically, like I applied all the CFPs I found out there, and turned out like I got accepted more than I thought, and I went all of them. But more than I thought, I'm okay because traveling is maybe like something I'm used to. I actually used to be a cabin crew before, but yeah, it exhausted me. So I enjoy the part to interact with people, but eventually I moved into the phase like maybe like don't I want to try out something a little bit different way? And I found out like yeah, contributing to create the technical, writing content and the video content or anything, resources for the developers are something that I really enjoy. So, and I learn a lot. So it changed by the time and it will happen probably. So keep trying what you think you might be interested in and try to review at some point if it's going to change from the time, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important because sometimes especially if you're really good at something, like Arisa, you got accepted for a reason, right? You're really good at giving talks, you give amazing talks. And so they wanted you to come back. And then it's even harder to be like, yes, I'm good at it, but actually it's too much or it's not making me happy or I would rather spend my time somewhere else, right? So it's really difficult if people from the outside constantly give you like positive feedback. And so it's good to have these like reflection points and where you check in with yourself, like, is this really what I want to be doing? Or why am I getting distracted? Is it because I don't actually, care is a hard word, but like, is it really interesting me as much as I thought it would? Or am I getting distracted because I would rather be doing something else? There could be other reasons, right? You can also get distracted because you're scared or you feel like you don't know enough or whatever. But it's just good to check and feel like, what is happening and why, and then you can still evolve from there. And if it just means you come back to doing whatever you were doing before, that's also great, but then at least you checked. And so I think that's super valuable.
Yeah, I also have a thing about me. Because like 10 years ago, I was both like web designer and, because you were web designer and also designing graphic, you were everything. So I met some people that were saying, okay, but if you want to design the website, you need to know something about graphic design, all this grid and Aura, low and something like that. So I took these tips and I studied a lot of things, like reading a lot of books about design and making stuff, but then at some point I was still sucking in this thing, I was still drawing things that were they are better than before, but not good as that real designer out there. And then I decided, do I really want to design a website? I want to code. I don't want to design. So I just put these things aside and I don't want to design, I just want to code. And so, yeah, I start my front-end focused career there. So yeah, as you say, you change your mind.
That's very interesting. And yeah, it's really like nice story to hear that what you figured out led you to become a front-end dev from the web designer.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Wish we could have more time, but yeah, we need to be cautious about the time for everyone. So very hard to do, but I'm gonna be a bad cop here. So let's start to wrap up. Yeah, so we do the live streaming every month. It's pretty much like around the end of every month. And we have a meetup page already prepared, I hope, for the next meetup. And our amazing colleague Sid is doing a magic behind the scene. Yes, so you can decide. You can take a photo of this QR code and scan it. Then yeah, you can already sign up for the next month's live streaming. The content is secret at this moment, but it's gonna come up pretty much soon. So yeah, stay tuned. And yeah, you're gonna find interesting topics like today's. And feel free to, like watch our past streaming recordings. You can find on actually the Storyblok's YouTube. I think I'm gonna quickly find the link because I mentioned, oops, sorry. Yeah, there's the one.
Oh, amazing. Thank you,
Yeah.
Arisa.
All right. So I put it in the chat. Now you should all have it. So with that, I would say it's very hard to say. It's the end of the streaming, but thank you everyone for staying and asking us a lot of questions, exchanging, the opinions. We really enjoyed it. And thank you, Nori, Lisi, for joining this live streaming.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you
It
for
was
letting us.
really,
It was really
really
nice.
We will
Oh.
miss you, Lisi.
Yeah.
Come more often.
Yeah. Yeah. But maybe there would be another chance in the future to, like
We hope
welcome
so.
you.
About architecture, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Then with
Thank you
that.
so much. Oh, sorry. Thank
Yeah.
you so much for
No.
joining, everybody. And if you have any questions afterwards, or if you have suggestions for new topics that you want us to discuss, you can always reach out to us on Twitter or on LinkedIn or wherever you can find us. We're super open to suggestions, and we're super grateful for everybody who joined the stream and
Indeed.
participated so actively. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Have a nice day.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Until next time.